Hello, everyone. So, welcome to the second last session in our September monthly current affairs series. And we're starting with the science and tech part one. Just like we have done, we have divided the whole science and tech into many fields such as human health and disease, biotechnology, space. Last time we did not have any fact related to space. Then some thing related to frontier technologies, right? So similarly, we'll deal with this time as well, starting with the human health and disease. So first, to give you just some perspective, some big picture stuff, just like we have done for the environment and ecology thing. Just like in the environment and ecology, we have made one chart, right? So this is what critically endangered, vulnerable, near, something like that. Similarly, here also you need to create the list or make a list of the diseases that you have read. For example, virus diseases, bacteria diseases, and all these things. Now, as compared to this is more GK stuff. For example, Lucent and a lot of books have contained these charts. But one thing you can prioritize as far as the UPSC exam is concerned, some of the diseases that we are discussing that are mainly in current affairs. For example, diseases caused by vitamin deficiencies are not that much important, but some of the diseases such as genetic diseases are important. Diseases such as malaria, TB, these diseases are important. What makes that diseases important? What makes them important, for example, is the fact that the incidence of those diseases is very high in India. A lot of people getting affected by those diseases. For example, today we'll read about malaria. So the impact of these diseases is very, very high. So disease burden, especially in context of the fragile health ecosystem of India. So that's a concern. Secondly, with respect to the emerging diseases, for example, UPSC has asked question on Ebola. UPSC has asked question on the new coming diseases as well. For example, they have asked question on this Zika. So they have asked question on these. Why? Even though they have not, when the question was asked, it was not seen in India. But these were emerging challenges, you know, and emerging disease challenges which have the potential to become a epidemic and then a pandemic. So from that perspective, these things become important, right? So from the next session itself, not this session, but in the next session, when we'll have a few diseases on our hand, we'll try to make this big picture stuff as well. Starting with the first one, that is brucellosis. Today's first fact, that is brucellosis. Now it's a disease that infects the animals. Tick. From animals, that is animals such as cattle, swine, goat, sheep, and dogs. From animals, it can be transferred to the humans if they get in contact with the infected animal. WHO says that most cases in the human are found if they are caused by the ingesting unpasteurized milk and cheese from the infected goat or sheep. From these goats and the sheep, if you consume this unpasteurized milk, then it can create problem for you. Symptoms being fever, chills, weakness, lethargy, headache, right? Remember, it's a bacterial disease. Okay? It was in the news because in China it has been seen. Okay? And around 3,000 people have been diagnosed. No fatalities have been reported. But and especially post COVID, everything has become such. For example, we'll see few of the diseases which have said it has a potential to become next pandemic, because now we are fearful. What are the things that we have seen with the COVID? You know, we have been too complacent in the start with respect to COVID, and we all have faced the consequences of it. So in China, it happened because of a leak in a particular industry. So not worrying about that, but this is important. Symptoms we have discussed, so nothing extra. Next is the disease, that is silicosis. Silicosis is said to be an occupational hazard. Now, silicosis is basically the disease that is caused by inhaling the silica particles, which are present in the rocks and the soil. Now, when that is there, silicosis, what happened when a miner is doing the mining without the protective gears, let's say masks, you know, or not following the protocols which have been set in place, So over the period of time, not 1 day, 2 day, but over the period of time, months, years, all these things, all this silica gets inside our lungs. So they cause inflammation, and because of which we face a lot of breathing issue. So it is a progressive disease that normally takes 10 to 30 years after first exposure to develop. And there is no cure for silicosis. But does not mean that we will ban all the mining. No, it's easily preventable as well if all the proper steps have been taken, right? For example, chest radiography of workers periodically after 1 year or after, let's say, six months. If someone starts to show the symptoms, then he should be relieved from that place and should be rehabilitated to the other place, right? New people should come in, so that one should not be exposed to the same thing with at this 10 to 30 years plus. For example, masks need to be there, wet drilling, dust extractor, and a lot of things can be done. And this has been done in many countries such as Australia, Canada, Finland, Germany, and many places. You can see average mean age only 35 years. So a lot of years have been lost, a lot of years of human capital have been lost. Okay? The worst affected states is one of the Rajasthan. You can see Rajasthan, Gujarat, MP, and all these. It was in the news because of the Rajasthan. In Rajasthan, it was seen that one of the schemes which is there for rehabilitation of the victims of the silicosis, a lot of misgovernance have been found in that, right? Then a lot of not good stories, but lot of horrific stories have also come, that women, widows of the stone miners who died of silicosis, have no choice but to return to the mining. And that is the impact of the intergenerational poverty, intergenerational effect of the diseases that is there on the family members, and especially on the women. So intergenerational impact can be seen because of this. Next, we enter into the study of malaria. So it was in the news, that is Plasmodium vivax malaria. So it is a protozoal parasite and a human pathogen. It is the cause of the malaria. Malaria is caused by the protozoa, protozoa parasite, and that have 5 kinds of protozoa parasite. Then there is a vector which takes it from here to there. Okay? So vector is the Anopheles mosquito. So it is a vector borne disease. Okay? Mosquito itself is infected by this particular parasite, and that mosquito will be cutting the person. There are 5 kinds of malarial parasites such as Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium vivax, and 3 more. More importantly, these first two, that is falciparum and vivax. These two are the most dangerous ones. Now in Africa, this one is very prominent, the falciparum. In India and the other countries, this vivax is there. Okay? 4 countries account for more than 80% of the estimated cases: Ethiopia, India, Indonesia, and Pakistan. Certain malaria endemic countries have seen even the amendment of the chloroquine for PVAX treatment, but fortunately, chloroquine is still effective in India, saying that one of the medicine that is taken for malaria, that is chloroquine. So a lot of countries have seen the resistance of the drug of the chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, remember. So that chloroquine drug is now not effective in many countries to treat malaria, but in India is still there. So it was in the news, they're studying PVVAX. There is a news that there is a why it's in the news, because some international team is working on studying more about this Plasmodium vivax malaria, how it actually operates, how to diagnose it better. Correct? So basically, they want to study more about this parasite because not much is known about the dormant stage. It is there when it is in liver. When it is there, the amount it showcases, it's very low. So diagnosis is very, very difficult. So our immune system does barely notices it. That is believed to be a silent stage. So it's still, that's an hypothesis, or still they are thinking over this theory. So if they are able to work on this theory, then they can work out some mechanisms to diagnose it early, to make our immune system respond to it better. Some sort of vaccine can be developed versus these Plasmodium vivax, which is not currently there for Plasmodium vivax. Let us discuss in general about malaria. So it's a preventable and curable disease. When we say curable, that means when the onset of the malaria is there, you have the medicines. Preventable means vaccine. There is a vaccine. Yes, now there is a vaccine. We'll discuss about that. In 2016, nearly half of the world population was at the risk of malaria. An infected mother can also pass the disease to her baby at birth. This is known as congenital malaria. So this is one thing that you need to remember. What is congenital malaria? That is the when mother passes that to her child. It is transmitted by blood also. It can also be transmitted through organ transplant, transfusion, or use of the shared needle or the spring. If one is infected by malaria, other can also be infected. Now we have discussed this Falciparum, right? The kind of the 5 kinds of Plasmodium. So this Plasmodium falciparum. So Malawi country in Africa has developed a vaccine against it. Right? So the vaccine offers no protection against the PVAX malaria. And that is one of the problems with respect to developing of the malaria vaccine. That there is a lot of parasites which cause this malaria, because of which development of the vaccine is very difficult. You can develop it for one, for developing the other is difficult. And that is why one question the UPSC has already been asked, we'll discuss it sometime, that why it is difficult to develop vaccine against the malaria. Okay? And that is known as RTSS. Just remember it, that's all. Now, if we look at the figure, for example, Global Malaria Report is published by WHO. It is last year, I have taught it. So India reported the largest absolute reduction in the cases. That means India is doing well. So India already has a lot of burden. India and 18 African countries over around 85% of the cases, right? But India is also doing really well. WHO itself has a global WHO global malaria program. So don't have to remember all this. So by 2030, global technical strategy for malaria is there, 2016 to 2030. And reduction by 90%, eliminate malaria in at least 35 countries and all these things. On the basis of which India also drafted is National Framework for Malaria Elimination. See the same years, 16 to 30, based upon the global technical strategy by WHO, sorry. So WHO has shown the framework that this is how we can proceed, and India has formed its own national framework based upon that. India is also thinking to make a national strategic plan for malaria elimination by 2022. Tick. Now, last year it was in the news, Malaria Elimination Research Alliance, MERA, India has been launched. MERA, India. So ICAR, that is Indian Council, ICMR, sorry, Indian Council of Medical Research has formed this MERA, India. So what it will be from the name itself, Malaria Elimination Research Alliance. So basically the idea is to do the research, such as the research we have discussed earlier. So reading more about, getting to know more about this Vivax, Plasmodium vivax. So it aims to harness and reinforce research in coordinated and a combinational ways in order to achieve the tangible impact on the malaria elimination, getting malaria eliminated in India by 2030. So this is what it is. India is winning war against the malaria. You can see number of cases and finally number of cases in 2014. Number of deaths witnessed from 1005 to 306. So around 66% reduction in the deaths have been observed. It's a good thing. Tick. Next, come to CAT-Q virus. So what is this? Again, a virus which the media or the people got scared. WhatsApp messages. Again, it has a potential to become a pandemic. Now it was not like that. A research has been conducted in 2017-18. 3 years prior data and all. So research has came out and they talked about that. It has a potential to become a pandemic. That's all. That's what the researchers said. For example, Availability of the vector, primary mammalian host, and the confirmation of CQV from the jungle myna signifies the potential of this virus as a public health pathogen in India. That means it can be a potential for the public health pathogen in India, but the media has taken it to the next level, and finally, the ICMR has to clarify that it is not at all perceived as a major public health threat. So, what is this? Let us understand this. It's largely reported in China in the Culex mosquito and the pigs having a potential to cause disease in India. Then it is a virus-borne disease. It can cause illness and meningitis, pediatric infantilitis, that is inflammation in human. Not very important fact, so as to say, but it was mentioned in the Indian Express. That's why we are discussing it. Next is bradykinin storm. So what type of a question you can expect? You can expect directly bradykinin storm. So this is a storm witnessed in Jamaica or somewhere in Japan. Nothing like that. Bradykinin is nothing but a substance that is there in our body. It's a compound in our body related to the pain sensation and the lowering of the blood pressure in our human body. Okay? So that is bradykinin. Now this compound is released in our body. Okay? We'll see. What is the context in which we are reading it? The context is COVID-19. The scientists are trying to understand that why some people are having a very serious consequences. For example, dying because of the COVID-19, and some people are not at all facing any issues, even if they are diagnosed with the COVID-19. And one of the hypotheses that has come, that is the bradykinin storm. Now, what they have said that, for example, SARS-CoV-2, that is the COVID-19, uses a human enzyme called ACE2 to enter the cells of its host. ACE2 is an enzyme with which the virus enters in our skin. It lowers the blood pressure and human body and works against the another enzyme, that is ACE, which has the opposite effect. The one enzyme, that is ACE, already there, and ACE2 lowers the blood pressure. The virus causes the level of the ACE to fall in the lungs and consequently push up the level of ACE2. So level of ACE2 increases and the ACE reduces, and both have the opposite effect. This causes a chain reaction, increased level of the molecule bradykinin in the cell. So when the bradykinin is increased, the level of the bradykinin is increased because of the increased ACE2, what happens? The blood pressure lowers more. Lowers the blood pressure more. The bradykinin storm include leakage of the fluid into the lungs combined with the excessive hydraulic acid, which will likely result in the gel-like substance and prevent the oxygen uptake and carbon dioxide in the lungs of the severely infected COVID-19. Because of so much blood pressure, lowering of the blood pressure lowers so much, it creates a problem. It creates a gel-like substance and inhale it, because a lot of cases that you have seen, why the COVID people die, because lack of सांस लेने में difficulty, breathing difficulties, and they are trying to explain it through this bradykinin storm. The rapid accumulation of the fluid in the lung sometimes make even the most sophisticated intensive care ventilator futile. Even if you are a ventilator, you will be dying. So this is known as the bradykinin storm. Last year we have read about the cytokinin storm. That was also related to the COVID-19. So one of the things that was found that for the cytokinins are the proteins which are released in our body in response to an infection. For example, if we get infected, so our immune system releases a protein, that is cytokinin. It is a kind of a response of our immune system. It's a good thing. But when a lot of cytokinin is released, then it creates a problem. It's, for example, in our body, here in our leg, let's say in our hand, there is a problem. So cytokinin goes there. But when inflammation is not regulated, the storm can come. Then this cytokinin can go to the healthy parts of our body as well. So it goes to our healthy part as well. When it goes to our healthy part, it creates problems in our healthy parts. and that is where our healthy parts also get infected, and it starts attacking the healthy tissues, and this is not a good thing, because of which the mortality rate increases. Our healthy organs also start facing a lot of problems. So Spanish flu, H1N1, swine flu, bird flu outbreaks in the recent year have been seen in the context of this. Next, we talk about flavonoids. What is this? These are a kind of, basically you can say, foods. So what they have found, the synthetic path to make this food. Up, the significance of this food is they inhibit the tuberculosis and chikungunya. Understood? So flavonoids are the foods. They are the molecules which are found in certain foods. Now these foods are, or these flavonoids are good for inhibiting the tuberculosis and chikungunya. Now they are trying to find a synthetic method to produce this, which you are getting from the natural resources. Okay? So Dr. Pratibha Srivastava says that in synthetic chemistry, analogous to the natural product can be prepared by the same route. At times, the nuggets show better medicinal property than the natural products. Flavonoids boost immunity. A flavonoid-rich diet is recommended. So you can call it a kind of a fortification as well. Okay. Now, most Ayurvedic products. So ancient Ayurvedic products are very rich in the flavonoids. Flavonoids are mostly present in the tomato, onion, lettuce, grape, apple, strawberry, peach, and other vegetable. A rich diet in the flavonoids protect us from the disease related to heart, liver, kidney, brain, and other infectious diseases. So these are the group of the phytonutrients present in almost all vegetables and fruits. They, along with the carotenoids, are responsible for varied colors of the fruit and vegetable. They are associated with the health benefit being good antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, and they offer good benefits for immune system. Recently, scientists from Agrahar Research Institute found the first synthetic route for producing the flavonoids molecules related to the treatment of tuberculosis and chikungunya. Tick, that's all. So if the question can be asked to you, what do you mean by flavonoids? Okay. Next is second national sero survey. So in the sero survey, you must have seen the headlines in the newspaper. Sero survey found that around 63% of the Delhites have already have the infection of COVID-19. So what they do, they basically draw blood from and they check for the antibodies. What happens when we are infected with the COVID? When we are infected with the COVID, our immunity system creates antibodies against this COVID-19, right? Now, if, for example, you get tested for this particular test and you have been infected by the COVID-19 in the past, now you are free from, for example, you done RT-PCR. RT-PCR says that you are positive, and then after 10 days, it says you are negative. So that means you are now free from COVID-19. But this test can show positive both the times. Why? Because in your body now you have the antibodies to fight the COVID-19. When you have the antibodies to fight this COVID-19, you have the in this test it will show positive. Okay. But sero survey, the result, the benefit of this test, that result comes very quickly. So it is now unclear that how long the antibodies detectably persist in the body. Their presence only indicates past exposure to, not present of the virus. Okay. Chalo. Next thing we discuss, that is serial interval. What is this? So serial interval is basically the idea that, for example, you get that a person is infected from COVID or any disease. Now a person has a potential, that particular disease has the human to human transmission. Now a person will infect a lot of people, B, C, D, and all. So serial interval is the time frame in which you get to know about the A. For example, on 20th January, you get to know that A has been diagnosed with COVID-19. And on 23rd, you get to know that, and now after you got that A has been diagnosed, now you start checking its relative, its contact, and everyone. On 23rd, you get to know that B is also positive. You have tested a lot of people, those who have been in contact with the A, and you found out after 3 days that, okay, now we found out that B is also positive. Other people are not positive. So this is the time lag which is known as the serial interval. ठीक? So that it is the time between the first infection and the next infection, that is known as the serial interval. ठीक है? So the one of the recent research has shown. So one of the question you can expect about the what do you mean of the serial interval. Now imagine yourself, if serial interval is reduced, think yourself, if serial interval is reduced, is it a good thing or a bad thing? It is a good thing. Why? Because it means that how the health infrastructure or the surveillance infrastructure and how better you are testing, treating and isolating, you're getting to know about this B person very quickly, and that is how you contain your pandemics. And that means the serial interval is, as if you reduce the serial interval, that means it's a good thing. In between, the B person will not infect the other person, it's also a good thing. Huh? So spread you can contain. So that China was able to contain COVID-19 due to its ability to manage the serial interval. You can see the duration between the symptoms of onset in the primary case, that means A, and the sometime of the onset of the secondary case, that is generation for the primary case, that is B. It helps to gauge the effectiveness of the infection control intervention besides indicating the rising population immunity and forecast future incidences. The more quickly a person who contracted COVID-19 are identified and isolated, shorter is the serial interval. So this is not for exam perspective, but just for our understanding that, for example, in China, you can see they have reduced from 7.8 days to 2.6 days between January and February. Quarantining contacts and all these things have been, for example, in South Korea, 3.63 days and other things. So these are known as the serial intervals. Next is the mega labs. What are these mega labs? Mega labs are basically next generation testing facility which will be created. Next generation testing facility which has been created in a lot of cases where even the RT-PCR gets the false positive or false negative. So to improve upon the testing infrastructure, they are saying that we want to establish these mega labs. Okay? So who mooted this? CSIR. So in these labs, what they will do, all the GNS sequencing and the gene sequencing that is being done. Based upon that, they will consist of, they will say whether this person is infected of the COVID-19 or not. Large machine known as next generation sequencing machines, which are used to sequence the human genome, will be repurposed to sequence 1500 3000 viral genome or detect the COVID-19 and especially the novel coronavirus, the UK variant. Then some terms, that is, first is the vaccine hesitancy. What is this vaccine hesitancy? Vaccine hesitancy is the, from the name itself, hesitant to get the vaccine. And bahut aasan sa hai. It is one of the 10 threats to the global health. So you can remember all the 10 threats, especially the ones which are effective for us. For example, air pollution and climate change, non-communicable disease, vaccine hesitancy, you can see number 8. Weak primary healthcare system, very important for our governance. Antimicrobial resistance, right? Weak, fragile and vulnerable settings. So these are the 5 to 6 that you can remember, that according to the WHO, these are the top 10 threats to the global health in health. Next is the vaccine nationalism. Vaccine nationalism, the idea of the vaccine nationalism is very easy. That means you procure so many vaccines for your own nation. One country procures so many vaccines, hedging, because they have the money to protect their own people. So when you book so many vaccines and other countries which don't have the resources, let's say some African countries, they will not get those access to those vaccines, right? So our country first, that's the idea. So vaccine nationalism occurs when a country manages to secure a dose of the vaccine for its own citizen before they are made available in the other countries. So they will sign this pre-purchase agreement with the many vaccine makers such as Pfizer or let's say Moderna and all these things. And to mitigate this crisis, one thing that has been created, that is COVAX facility by WHO and Gavi and CEPI, that is Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness and Intervention. So they have created this COVAX facility where they will secure around 2 billion dose of the vaccines and they will provide it to the low and middle income countries. So these are the selfish endeavors. You can see USA has invested into 17 vaccines, United Kingdom in 3 vaccines. So much money has been spent. And a lot of countries, for example, you can see yeah, in 2022 there will be a lot of countries in Africa and there where the vaccine will reach finally after each and every country is done with its own people. Okay? So this is known as vaccine nationalism. What India is doing with the vaccine Maitri is a brilliant example of Indian diplomacy, or the medical diplomacy, or the vaccine diplomacy, or the basically projection of our soft power, or in fact our hard power in that sense. In So it is known as vaccine internationalism, the India's contribution to the world in that regard. Our, for example, low income neighbors, Nepal, Maldives, we are providing these vaccines. The last fact of the day, that is Indian brain templates and brain atlas. Now NIMHANS in Bangalore, very famous institute for mental health, has developed the new Indian brain templates. Till now, the working of the Indian or the brain templates have been used of the Caucasian, that is the not Indian brains. For example, they have to do some research on the brain. So templates and atlas, the digital atlas and all these things were prepared from the Western model. But now the Indian NIMHANS has prepared the Indian model itself. So currently we're using this Montreal Neurological Index template based upon the Caucasian brains. But India will now have a scale that will measure an Indian brain. So that now the Indian brain will be used. And based upon that studies and that observation, everything can be done very India centric. What is required for India? What medicines, for example, studying dementia and a lot of diseases will be done. For example, schizophrenia and a lot of different diagnoses and everything can be modeled based upon the Indian brain. Some of the things that they have found out, for example, Indian brain is slightly smaller in height, width and volume compared to the Western and Eastern population, right? So till now they are using Caucasian, but this was not ideal to analyze the brain difference in the Indian population. But they have made now an Indian product of it. It will help us to aid our understanding of the psychiatric illnesses such as attention deficit, ADHD, autism, substance dependence, schizophrenia, mood disorder, more reliable tracking of the brain development and aging and all these things. So it's a good thing. So what you need to remember, it is a work being done by NIMHANS. Okay, so NIMHANS ने किया है. This is one thing that you need to remember, and where it will be helpful. So with this, we finish our first session on science and tech. In the second session, we'll talk about some other things such as space and other issues. And with this, we'll finish our September month monthly current affairs and we'll start the October month itself. Till then, thank you everyone. See you all in the next session. Bye-bye.